is Nicole. I am Managing Director of Berklee Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship. And along on this little 1-hour journey with me today, I have George Howard. He's a music business and management professor at Berklee, one of my co-conspirators with the Open Music Initiative, and my partner in crime for this little series as well that we're kicking off today. And then we've got some amazing guests and a great conversation. We have alumni Basia Galaj, who's going to be sharing with us later. And then we have two great Berklee professors and artists themselves. We have Annette Philip and Maria Finkelmeier, and we're going to speak with them later. So for those of you who don't know Berklee's Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship, we were founded about 6 years ago now, with the sort of charge to infuse the startup mindset across the Berklee community. And I define that Berklee community pretty broadly. Of course, it's students and faculty, staff, alumni at Berklee College, Boston Conservatory, Berklee Valencia, Berklee Online, and now Berklee Abu Dhabi, inspired by Berklee, which is our high school K-12 partnership. And we continue to grow. And then the Berklee community, the industry that surrounds Berklee, the music industry in general. And as we started shifting online, and as sort of the writing was on the wall and we were seeing sort of what was going to come down, we realized that a lot of creativity comes from people interacting with each other. And while certainly there's something about sort of going inward and exploring sort of those depths within, there's also a lot of happy accidents and pieces of inspiration that come from people interacting and just, you know, listening to somebody else in their rehearsal space or overhearing a conversation in a coffee shop. And a lot of those happy accidents and overlaps are now gone. And so as George and I were talking about sort of what we were going to do in a class that we teach, Music plus Blockchain, which is part of the Berklee Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship, or BerkleeICE minor, we started saying, you know, how can we bring our community together and sort of use this as an opportunity to, while of course we are sort of digitally all spread out, how can we use this as an opportunity to create more community and explore some interesting conversations? So hence, this was born. So this is our first one. So please bear with any technological lumps and bumps, but we are recording it for better or for worse, and we'll share it out later. Turn on your cameras if you want or don't. If you have questions and comments as you go through, you can put them in the chat, and Bree, who is our grad fellow and sort of behind the scenes making this all work, will nudge me and let me know of questions. And any resources or links that come up, if there's questions that we're not able to answer, we are also going to be turning loose a BerkleeICE public Slack, where we're going to have creative entrepreneurship resources, not only for Berklee students and Berklee community, but beyond. And it'll be a great place for, we think, sort of this community of artists and creatives and entrepreneurs within Berklee and beyond to connect with each other, to network, to find creative community, to share ideas. The last thing I'll mention is that a lot of this was sort of inspired by this concept of mutual aid. Mutual aid, if you haven't sort of plugged in your community or if you're not aware, is a tool that's existed for a while based on community organizers looking at what the community has, the resources within a community, and what the community needs, and connecting those needs and those resources directly, not waiting on government or systems to come in, but rather to connect people and resources that exist, and people who are in need, and people who are in need of resources. So in that similar spirit, we are building this out. So I think without further ado, I'm gonna turn it over to George, who's gonna do a lecture that I think is particularly pertinent and relevant to our times currently. And so George, would you be able to take it from here?
I'm going to try my very best. Let's see here. Do we see anything?
You are good.
Yeah? Did that work?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so you can see. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for that intro, Nicole. And so, just out of curiosity, can anybody see my face or just the screen?
Just the screen.
Yeah, just the screen and
perfect.
The G.
Okay, great, perfect. So this was a talk that I gave some time ago as part of the International Development Bank. I have this habit of saying yes to things when people ask me to go give talks or whatever, and sort of aspirationally think, okay, I'll go give the talk and I'll boondoggle my way into a couple of days of relaxation. So some time ago, the International Development Bank asked if I'd give a talk in Jamaica, and they asked in like, you know, November, or no, like April or something. I thought, okay, but wanted me to come in the winter. I thought, that sounds great. I'll be able to go and give a talk and then go, you know, sip fruity cocktails on the beach or something. But then I immediately, as I do, forget that I have this thing to do until like the day before. And they're like, oh, George, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And by that point, life has become complicated. And my thoughts of time on a beach with a fruity cocktail disappear. And instead, I have to fly to Jamaica the day before and leave the day after. So I fly into Kingston, Jamaica, which to my mind is really sacred ground for music. It's, you know, Bob Marley. It's arguably the birth of hip hop. But if anybody's ever been there, it's a really, really sort of depressed place. And so I get there and I'm grumpy because I don't have much time, and they stick me in a Marriott Courtyard, so I might as well have been in Detroit or something. There was nothing exotic about it. And being the little introvert that I am, I think, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, sit in my room and watch basketball and drink vodka or something. And then the organizer said, no, you should come out and see some music. Well, of course I should. So I go, and it's this little bookstore, and there are these people performing on the steps. Amazing music and poetry and spoken word, and it was really, really beautiful. And you know, it reminded me what the hell I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and pulled me out of my you know, stupid headspace and recalibrated me. And I went back to the hotel and I tore up virtually tore up the PowerPoint that I had created for my talk the next day. And I sat there, and as you'll see in a second, hand drew this one. And I should also mention it was a concept that I've been thinking about for a while. And then I'd done a conversation that I hope at some point soon becomes a book with the great artist Kristen Hirsch. She came to a class I taught at Brown and really helped me sort of solidify some of this. So she deserves a lot of credit on this as well. But in any case, so I get back to the hotel, I write this up, and I give this presentation that seems to have stuck a little bit. I've given it a bunch of times since, but it seems relevant right now. So let's see if I can make this work. All right, so that's me attempting to draw a line. That it's an attempt at a straight line there. And so just think of that as sort of baseline excitement. You were neither excited nor not excited. You were just kind of just okay. But then something happens, and that is my attempt at drawing an arrow and a little asterisk. I'm not a good drawer. And you get this moment of kind of dopamine hit when you have a new idea, or for a new venture, or a new band, or you meet somebody that you feel could be your soulmate, and all of a sudden you skyrocket up to this excitement level. The dopamine comes crashing in, and you think, oh my gosh, this is my soulmate, and I will have children with this person, or this idea is going to change the world, or this band is going to be the next, you know, Swans or Led Zeppelin or something. And you reach this huge peak of excitement. But then, as is so often the case, shit gets real, right? And that person who you thought was your soulmate, you find out that he or she or they has 15 cats and you're allergic to cats, or that band that you thought was so great, the drummer's really not that good, or the idea for the venture that you had is, you know, you realize that other people have had similar ideas and maybe they're already out there. And so, you know, you're still excited, but you're not nearly as excited as you were just before. And then, of course, shit gets hard. Not only does that person that you thought was your significant other have 15 cats, but he, she, or they is a carnivore, eats only bacon, and you are a vegetarian. Not only is the drummer not a terribly good drummer, but she never shows up for rehearsal, and you're just kind of getting sick of it. Not only is the venture that you thought that you were going to start, the new business, not only are others doing it, but you cannot get your web designer who you paid a bunch of money to on the phone at any point to finish your damn website. So now you're back at that stage where before you begin anything, where the excitement level is back to kind of baseline. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, geez, I wish this had never happened. And then as things go, you get worse. And now this sucks. Why did I do this? And not only is that person who you thought you loved a cat lover and a carnivore, but he, she, or they has been cheating on you. And not only is that drummer who you thought was going to make you the next best band since as Tyler will say, Pantera or Slayer or something, not showing up for practice and bad, but they left the country with the guitar amps to buy drugs. And not only has the web designer for the business that you thought was an original idea not returning your calls, but he or she has stolen your identity, and now everything sucks. And you're wondering, why did I do this? What was the point? And this sort of up and down series right here is a very, very consistent thing. And what happens a lot at this point is that many people, you know, when relationships or many businesses or bands or whatever, at this point they give up. They throw in the towel and they start over. With a lot of businesses that I run or have the privilege of working with, I'm constantly telling people, avoid the shiny object syndrome, meaning as soon as something gets hard, bad business people then look for that shiny object and say, well, let's just start this, or let's do another thing. And that's a terrible trap to get in. You will stay in this sort of Bermuda Triangle of excitement level going up and crashing down until things get hard, and it always gets hard, right? This is the valley of despair. Every artist, every company, every relationship follows this trajectory. There is not a relationship that doesn't go through this, not a business that doesn't go through this, not a band that doesn't go through it. Everyone does. And anybody that says they didn't is lying to you. You'll read on TechCrunch or something about, oh, we came up with an idea, we got some venture funding, and 6 months later we had $1 billion valuation. Not true. That is a nice narrative, but it is not true. And many people don't survive this valley of despair, nor should they. Many, you know, marriages end in divorce, bands break up, businesses fail, and so be it. The challenge is knowing when to throw in the towel and when to redouble the efforts. And this is where really the meat of the bones on this presentation. Many don't climb out, and those that do, they're not climbing out because of what's known as the perils of commoditization, what I call perils of commoditization. And that means that you've gone from something that was a purpose-driven idea to a product-driven idea. So if you look, I don't know if you can see my cursor, if you can look at this stage here, that would be going from the excitement level 0 up to peak excitement, and think about, for instance, relationships you've been in, or bands you've been in, or businesses you've started. Oftentimes at this stage when you're kind of going up, at the beginning of relationships, you're not being yourself. You are being who you believe that other person wants you to be. And if you're in a band, when you start at this stage, you're not typically playing the music that's in your soul or in your heart. You're playing music, and it's like, oh, well, we should sound a little bit like Pantera, but with a girl singer or something. And if you're a business, you're saying, well, we're going to start a business, and it's going to be like Uber, but it's going to have scooters or whatever. And so all during this time, you're really productizing yourself. You're really becoming a commodity. You're becoming something that you're not, rather than truly being yourself. And so axiomatically, you start cascading down this. Some, though, do begin to climb out over time. And they do when they get back to emphasizing purpose, not product. You get to this stage where, and you've had this in relationships, where you will sit with the person and you say, look, I have to be me. I can try to be better on the margin, but I cannot change. And I have to just be me. And in a beautiful moment in a relationship, when that happens, the other person kind of looks at you and goes, what have you been waiting for? That's all I want. I love you for who you are. And the band, often I think of bands like, I think of artists like John Frusciante or Frank Zappa, or people where they just go, no, this is the music that I make. This is what I do. And I don't really give a rat's ass what other people want me to make. This is what I make. Or I think of the great businesses that go, well, no, we're going to make this because it's what we need. And then if other people happen to need it or use it too, great. And that starts to occur when you start, unfortunately, when you've reached a bottom point. I wish there was a way people could just start from that premise of clearly and precisely articulating your purpose. But it seems like there is this trajectory where you have to kind of go through pretending to be something that you're not, or pretending to try to be a business that you think the market wants, rather than just being the person or the business that you think you should be. What happens is when you do it, when you clearly and directly articulate your purpose and put it out there, other people recognize it. Other people go, oh, wait a second, it's my purpose too. This is what I want. And in business parlance, we call this product market fit. In relationships, we call it true love, right? And in bands, we just call it awesome and original. The point of this is that artists make people see themselves as they want to be, as non-artists can't articulate it. And it's why it's so important in this day and time, when so many people are wrestling with all the emotions that we're all going through in isolation and everything else. It's so obvious why people are turning to art, because artists are articulating emotions that others just can't, that don't have access to. And I'd imagine most people on this, listening to this, are artists themselves. And for us, it seems obvious. We're communicating what we feel. That's not representative of humanity at large. My biggest observation through this time of just immense pain is the cognitive surplus that people are finding themselves with, and the overarching desire to make things. People are just burning to make something. We all have this in it, but it's us artists at this point that need to show others the way. The way that we can do our jobs now is to clearly and articulate our own art, and to give other people the confidence that they should be doing the same. Once you do that, once you start articulating yourself, what you do, and people recognize it, you get this beautiful thing that in business speak is called Net Promoter Score, where people begin telling their friends. Every band, every artist, every business succeeds if and when their fans or their friends tell their other friends. No exceptions. There's not a band out there in the world who has succeeded unless and until one of their fans told their friends. And it's true of business too. I will avoid the obvious metaphor of the way viruses spread at this point, but it's a similar thing. Technology, blockchain, this was originally given for a blockchain talk, but any type of blockchain, and Tyler, thank you again for buying my book, that was very kind. It just facilitates this. It's really important in this day and time where we're limited in our ability to communicate face-to-face or in person, to recognize that technology is an agnostic tool. It can be used for good or for bad. I hope and pray with all my heart that this does give us a chance to kind of begin again and use the internet and technology in a way that it was really meant to be, as a communication tool, not as an echo chamber for silos. And it's important to remember during these times also that the only thing that can't be commoditized is you. Your job is really to radiate that purpose out. Learn the rules. I mean, my life has been devoted to trying to teach artists the quote unquote rules, whether they're rule of laws or rules of the music business or whatever, not only so you can break them and find ways to kind of chart your own path, and then use technology as the tool. If and when you do that, shit gets great. And you realize that your peak excitement was really, really an illusion, and that you didn't really know what excitement and happiness was until you were your most true and authentic self. And that's how you climb out of the valley of despair. So that is me. And yeah, let's build some things. Now I gotta figure out how to, can you just switch me off now, Nicole? Let's see. I bet I can.
I think you need to.
Okay. There we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know if we have any questions. I think you probably saw this, George, and perhaps others too. There was a tweet that came through, I think that was yesterday. I've kind of lost track of like what the day and date is, if I'm being perfectly honest. But it said, art has the unique ability to encapsulate human touch and emotion, transporting across great distances, both in time and space. And I think that like that empathy piece is certainly true, but I think that the touch piece is also just like so massive right now as folks are really isolated. And like I was, you know, practicing social isolation in a park and saw some friends, and it just feels so strange, like at this point more than ever, to not hug people. So thanks.
Well,
Thanks for that.
Art is an empathy machine, and we'll take the empathy where we can get it. But no, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. Any questions or follow-up from any of our folks before we move on? All right, cool. So with that, I'm going to welcome to the digital stage an alum that I met when she was at Berklee. She was definitely one of the first sort of students revolving around the Berklee Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship, and as she'll tell the story, was one of the first students in a lot of our new courses. And she also ran our Student Entrepreneurship Association. So I was thrilled when George sent me this email a few weeks ago with her work, and it literally gave me goosebumps and, you know, made the hairs stand up at the back of my neck. And so I'm really excited to welcome her. For these sessions, I think we're going to feature a student or an alum every single time. So Basia, let's bring you on. There she is. Welcome. Yeah, we can hear you great. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to, your project, and sort of where you're going.
Sure. So my name is Basia, and thank you for this introduction. I originally come from Poland, and while I was at Berklee, I actually studied CWP, which is the Contemporary Writing and Production. And because I transferred from Berklee from UNT, which is a school in Texas, I had enough time and credits to do a minor, and that's how I discovered the BerkleeICE Institute. And then I learned about the minor, the Creative Entrepreneurship minor. And I always knew that I have too much creativity in me, so I had to do something with it. So I decided to do the minor, the Creative Entrepreneurship minor. And while I was doing the minor, I was able to take a class with George, but we'll get to that part of the story in just 1 second. So while I was at Berklee, I came up with a project idea. I had a lot of ideas, but this one was very important because, as I said at the beginning, I come from Poland, and if any of you know the history of Poland, in 1939, Germany attacked Poland, and that started World War II. And what's really important to me is the fact that there are still people who remember the Holocaust, the World War II, and they're still alive and are still among us. And I think it's very important to remember about them, about their history, so that it never repeat itself, right? And when I was at Berklee, I thought, what can I do as an artist to give them honor, to honor them and thank them in some way? So I decided to interview World War II survivors. And I interviewed over 50 World War II survivors all across Poland and the United States, and also Holocaust survivors, of course. And then based on the stories I heard from the survivors, I wrote songs, 8 songs, because in 2019, we were remembering there were 80 years, oh gosh, I'm sorry. There was 80 years of from the beginning of World War II, so that's why 8 songs. Each song talks about a different perspective of war. So there's a song about kids, there's a song about people falling in love, there's a song about parents, grandparents. And the reason why I wanted to do it in this way is because one lady told me that if the war happened today, we would take part of it, and we would have the same dreams, the same needs. We would still want to start a family, fall in love, go to school, travel. But now we're free and we can do it, but they couldn't, right? So I came up with this project, but it was all very loose and I didn't really know what to do after the interviews. And then in my last semester at Berklee, I took a class with George, and it changed everything. So George, I owe you so much, because every week we had to bring an idea, or we had to bring the idea at the beginning and then shape it every week and talk about what we're doing, how we're developing the idea. So I brought the idea and the work that I've done so far. And because of George's feedback, I was able to create a plan and a project that then I was able to finish and release the project. So that class was in the spring semester. So right after graduation, I recorded the album. Then went to Poland and started booking radio interviews, TV interviews, magazines, music videos. I created a website on my own, started a Facebook account, Instagram, everything all by myself, because although people thought and encouraged me to do it, nobody really wanted to get involved in it because they didn't think I will be able to complete it. Well, I proved them wrong and I did it, so I'm very happy about it. But it was a tough journey, to be very honest with you, where nobody believes in you and you kind of have to do it all by yourself. But that taught me a lot. And I created this project, went on tour to 5 big cities in Poland. I was on the national TV in Poland, the biggest national TV during prime time. So over 2 million people were able to hear about the project, which is like unbelievable. I can't believe that it happened. And I was on the news, I was in the magazine cover, and like all that happened is because I believed, like George said, in the purpose of the project. I believed that this is bigger than me. This is about the World War II survivors and remembering about them and what they did for us, for Poland, for the world. So I would like to show you a little bit of that, and I will do my best. So let's see. Please tell me if you can see something right now. Yes? Okay,
yes.
cool.
Yeah, you're good.
Thank you. So this is the website I created, and here are some of the pictures of the survivors that I was able to talk to and meet. The survivors are mostly 85 and up. The oldest survivor that I talked to was 107. And one of the stories, one of the things, that incredible things that happened during this project is that I met her and she sent me a letter. She sent that letter on Valentine's Day last year, and I received it 3 days after she passed away. So the letter was sent and then I received it, it was kind of like a letter from heaven, I call it. And here, this is the band and everything, but I want to tell you a particular song. I want to play a particular song because all these survivors, I wrote one song that talks about each story together, just like a song for and about them. So this lady right here, her name is Basia, actually, just like me. She's 96 years old. The picture she's holding in her hands is a picture taken in 1944. That was right before Warsaw Uprising. And I love her very, very much. And while I was talking to her, one of the things she said to me, there's this one sentence. She said, "Do you understand that if the war happened today, you would be in my place, you would be in my position, and that I had the same dreams and need just like you, and I wanted to live and love." And that was something that stayed with me and is with me every single day. So that's why I wrote this song, and that's why the concept of this music video. And I would like to play you a little bit of it. I'll also share the link so that you can listen to it on your own later. But let me just play you a little bit of the video. And all the elderly people in the video are the World War II survivors that I interviewed, or some of them, of course. And yeah, so let me know if you can hear it. Okay.
Hear it.
Ja i ty mamy takie same sny i marzenia, niczym nie różnimy się. Dzień za dniem coraz dalsze stają się. Nie przestawaj, wierzyć w nie. I choć czas ucieka nam i wydawać się może, że nie zaleczy naszych ran, miej siłę, by dalej biec na przekór z miłością i dumą. O wolności mów bez strachu, otwarcie, ona w tobie jest. Na przekór z miłością i dumą. O wolności mów bez strachu, otwarcie, ona w tobie jest.
The whole thing, but maybe I'll pause it right here so that you can listen to it on your own later. But the concept of it, oh, it's in Polish, but I actually put the English translation in the description on YouTube. But the concept of this is that all the stories that you see in the video are the stories that the survivors told me. And so it's kind of like their memories of, you know, the stories. So I wanted to capture that, but I also wanted to share one more story with you and one more song. So this gentleman right here, he was a Warsaw Uprising soldier, and it was the uprising of the capital of Poland that was supposed to last 3 days, but actually lasted 63 days. It was his 100th birthday. I've never been on a better birthday party in my life before. That's 100 years the best, let me tell you that. But it's actually, his story is quite sad because his family kind of forgot about him. And although he did so much for Poland, it breaks my heart to tell you, but he was put in the, I don't know how you say it very well in English, but it's like the old elderly house where, you know, yes, so that with his wife, and they were separated. They were on two ends of this house. So when I met him, I actually met him there, and he started tearing up when I like sat down with him on his bed in that place, because he said that nobody really wants to hear his stories anymore, and all he wanted to do is go back to Warsaw, because that was actually in Boston where I met with him. And he wants to see Warsaw again. Unfortunately, he didn't get that chance. He passed away right after his 100th birthday. So that was the last time I saw him. But because I met him in the United States, and you can see the pictures here, we gifted him this book. That's his wife, and he was very happy during his 100th birthday. So that's a great thing. But I wrote a song about him in English, so that one is the only one in English. So I'll play you just a little bit of that, and it's, you know, his story and my take on it.
Every word you say, every thought you have disappears each day. No one seems to care. It doesn't matter what you did if they don't care about you. Alone and far away from home. If only I could do anything. Time is right.
So you can listen to it in full, and that's all I have prepared for the sharing. So okay, perfect. And I guess I wanted to tell you what's next, and just something that I've learned from doing this project is I learned that it's incredibly important to stay creative and believe in what you do, even though maybe everybody around you may give up on you. Even my mom had doubts that I can finish this project. So believe me, your mom starts doubting, that's dangerous. But I always believed that I can finish this because of the purpose, because of the World War II survivors that I met and talked to, And every time I would had my breakdowns, I would keep going because of them. So what's next? I would love to do a podcast series, go back to Poland, interview them again, and record it, because all I have right now is my notes and some recordings on my phone, but of course that's not ideal. So I would love to finish this, or that's the next step. So do the podcast series, and that's what I've been planning. And I'm actually living in California right now and looking for a job. So that's what I've been up to. But yes, so I'm very glad. And one thing I've also learned from this is that when you do your own project, if you have your idea, your band or something that's yours, then so many people that you never probably expected to meet would show up on your life. And I met so many people. I got invited to so many places that I probably would have never ended up in if I didn't do this project. So I'm very, very thankful I actually did it and didn't give up on it. And yes, so that's my story. And thank you, George. I already told you, but without you, I don't know where I would be today, without your feedback and encouragement, and also without this minor. I mean, it all started with me picking this minor because I always thought I have a little bit of creativity in me, and all the resources, everything helped. So I'm very, very thankful. And that's my story. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Basia.
Wow, Basia, thank you so much.
Thank
And I know that you're going to put the link to all your videos and your site in the chat, and
Yes.
we'll definitely share that out. And yeah, every time that I dig a little bit deeper in what you share, it's incredible. So thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to transition to our last little set of guests and discussion for today. And I think, Basia, you sort of spoke a little bit about, what your next steps are. And this is going to be something we're going to explore a bit with Annette and Maria. So, you're home doing your thing in California, Basia, and others may be sheltering in place or social distancing with family. They may be alone. They may have sort of been frozen in time with whichever co-living partners they found themselves with in the moment. And as I was mentioning at the sort of top of this, there's all these elements of creativity, and certainly there's a lot to be found within, but there's also how we create in communities. And so we have so many talented artists at Berklee, and I'm really excited to welcome two of them to our talk today. So Annette Philip is, I first met her actually when she joined our Silicon Valley student trip a few years back. She is artistic director of the Berklee India Exchange, as well as a vocalist. And Annette, I'm gonna let you tell a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll introduce Maria as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Firstly, thank you so much for doing this. Basia, your project is incredible. And I mean, I'm tearing up. I'm already kind of emotional today, but I'm really, I wish you had just played the songs. So please send us the link. Thank you. And a little bit about myself. So my name is Annette Philip. I am from India. I went to Berklee a couple of years ago and then transitioned into a new role as faculty and then eventually faculty hybrid administrator. What I've founded at Berklee is the Berklee Indian Ensemble, and it's one of the most diverse classes at the college now. And the idea behind it was, how can we bring Indian music in all its idioms and just make it open and accessible to people from all over the world. And that sort of grew into its own institute called Berklee India Exchange. And our primary goal there is to, really create this cross-pollination of music through tours, concerts, content creation. We have about 148 million views from just the class videos right now, and workshops all throughout the world, as well as scholarship and internship opportunities that we either provide or we create through networks, not only in India, but globally. And outside Berklee, I am a full-time vocalist. I've actually just got off tour. 18 of our shows got canceled. I was on a US tour right now with my group, Women of the World. We sing in about 37 languages. So I love really exploring many different types of music. And Basia, I'm going to reach out because I think I'd love to learn some of these songs as well. And just really inspired. And I think to wrap up, my main thing is I love working with people. So it's a very interesting time, working remotely with many people and trying to create community while we're in this lockdown. And it's actually been very interesting because I've been finding new ways to reach out, but I guess we'll get into that later. So
Definitely.
That's my short thing.
Thanks, Annette. This, I think, I've been wanting to do something with Annette for a while, and we were supposed to have lunch like, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, and we kept on pushing it off, and here we finally are, we're doing it. And then Maria Finkelmeier is a Boston-based percussionist, vibraphonist, live experience designer, entrepreneur, founder of MASARY Studios. I hope I said that right.
Great.
And a recent member of BerkleeICE's team of teachers as well. She teaches a course in our minor. And she had been sort of in the orbit of Berklee, and I'd been introduced to her multiple times, and I'm really excited to now have her as part of the team. And Maria and Annette haven't worked together yet, but I see some future collaborative experiences possibly opening up. So Maria, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more if you'd like, and then I'm going to kick things off.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nicole. And it's so lovely to hear George speak, learn about Basia's project, and meet you, Annette. Basia, I will be telling my friends about you. So to reflect on what George was telling us about, like, people are going to know. I'm so excited to share it. And it's really beautiful and moving and so timely right now. I think it's moving to know we are in a place of discomfort and anxiety right now, and to see that you've helped these people create memory or continue to share their memory so long ago is really, really beautiful. So thank you. A little bit more about me. Thanks, Nicole, for that introduction. I'm really passionate about creating memory is how I kind of sum up my life. I'm a percussionist by kind of training, and improviser and composer by passion. And then I've always been led by trying to understand how to get my music practice and the music practice of others in front of and within as many people as possible. And that's led me to create a lot of projects outside the stage and concert hall. So I'm really passionate about music plus public space, and a couple of projects that my collaborators and I have done in the past. For example, I've taken 90 percussionists and put them in the Arnold Arboretum to perform a piece by a Pulitzer Prize winning composer. We've turned the backside of Fenway Park, the beams that hold up the Green Monster, into a percussion instrument and projection canvas for a festival. And then most recently, we turned a bridge in Cincinnati, Ohio, into a kind of illuminated instrument. We sampled the bridge and then created a hypersynchronized sound and light score that connected Kentucky and Ohio and was kind of the centerpiece of the festival. So I kind of started as this very classically trained percussionist, and my career and my passion has led me to do things that I never imagined doing, like light design. So I'm really, George's presentation really inspired me, because that kind of flow, like anti-flow is the story of my life. And I'm happy to be chatting today because this is a really hard time we're going through. And I think the more we just talk about it and share, not just here's the finished product, it looks great, go art, but also this moment of confusion and anxiety, I think will kind of only benefit all of our artistic practices.
Thank you. So if I can sort of start the conversation, Annette, you touched on this, and certainly you, Maria, as well. As artists, you are both artists who create widely with a lot of people, And, you know, by either traveling or by connecting in person, I've seen some of the Berklee Indian Ensemble. And yeah, it's amazing to see so many students that I know from so many different practices, they're working together. And then Maria, like you said, you're very much an artist who is sort of about being out in the world. And that's the opposite of what we're doing now. And so, and then, you know, one other point that I think that Annette touched on when we were speaking a few days ago, and I'd like to sort of introduce is this idea of a mandate to create. And, you know, there was so much of like, all right, like now, like write your novel, write your masterpiece, you have no excuse. And like, if you can't tell, like I have children. And so, you know, that's not something that I'm doing. And I think that there's a lot of other pressures that folks are balancing. So how has the transition been? And, you know, as you tap into your creative communities, where are people at? Where are you at? And how are people responding to the sort of shift inward? And how are people responding to what sort of felt like a mandate to create?
I think overall, the primary thing is people are blaming themselves or feeling guilty. I think that's what I felt across the board, even from, you know, full-time professional musicians or students, or even, you know, people who are just excited about having time off and feeling like they must remodel their house and, you know, clean every cabinet in their houses, or finish that, you know, 3 of their website projects. And there's just a lot of pressure, because I think the new paradigm is, oh, you've got all this time and therefore one must fill it. And I think because our usual routine in our daily life, because we have certain projects or certain commitments and responsibilities, you know, there's only a little time. And sometimes that's a blessing, because you give yourself a little more permission to take that time off. Now, when there's just all this time, how do you create routine? Does routine work or does it not? And one of the things that I noticed when I got off tour, it was a sudden shift of traveling for 3 months and then suddenly being only in the house, was I just felt resistance for about almost a whole week. I felt resistance. I didn't want to clean. I didn't want to create. I didn't want to be online. I didn't feel like connecting on the phone with people. I wanted to eat all the time. I think a lot of people are having that as well. And what I did for myself was allow my inner child to lead me in that 1 week. And I found that it led me to a shift. And eventually it just kind of metered out. And I found that I shared this concept with a couple of people and they've tried it and it seemed to have worked. Give yourself a little extra leeway, a little extra time, and sort of that new routine, that new way to structure in this paradigm seems to evolve and present itself. So I know that doesn't answer all the questions, but I just feel like, yeah, right now, the moment is still feeling anxious and feeling like we must produce, because it's, you know, the spotlight is on, everyone's online all the time right now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Maria, any thoughts?
Yeah, Annette, I'm so with you. That inner child, just following it. I agree. I felt kind of thrown off track as soon as we really had the mandate to isolate, to teach online, to be home, and also that huge pressure, and also just the pressure of being so connected digitally, of seeing so many of my wonderful friends creating. I all of a sudden felt like, okay, I have to go write a piece. I have to go say something that is really eloquent. And I have to bring the community together and be the person that says the right thing to fix everything. And it was a really, that first week, I agree, was just overwhelming pressure. Plus I have a 15-month-old baby, plus my husband's an artist, and we're both just trying to figure out this new flow. And what really helped me shift my mindset was accepting the anxiety as part of what's going to fuel me later. And to bring it back to a little bit of what George spoke about earlier, like let myself be in the valley. I'm a very optimistic person. I'm a very positive person. So just letting myself be in the confusion, that kind of mindset shift is very difficult for me. But as soon as I said, this stinks, I don't know what to do. Is this going to last 3 weeks? Is this going to last 6 months? Like, where's our next gig going to come from? As soon as I said, like, I cannot fix this, all of a sudden I started to say, well, maybe I'll practice some scales on the piano today. Maybe I'll do this. I literally haven't practiced piano in years, but all of a sudden I started to do that because I all of a sudden let myself say, I don't have to be my best self in front of the world right now. I can actually be another human experiencing this highly anxious and uncertain time.
Look, we all do this, looking for some sort of connection. I think it's always true, but maybe more true now than ever, that perfect is the enemy of good. And I think, I'm big for kind of on the whole purpose, not product. Increasingly, I think the new mantra needs to be kind of impact without credit, right? So it's about the impact. It's about the work. Put the work out there. We're seeing very clearly people who are putting things out there designed just to try to, for some narcissistic point of view. The world does not need a bunch of celebrities doing a shitty version of Imagine, right? The world needs people that are creating things that come directly from them. Perfect is the enemy of good. Follow that, put it out there. You'd be surprised where the connections lead.
So how, to shift, we have a few minutes left, to shift a little bit tactically. Obviously there's Zoom, and Zoom stocks have been skyrocketing, so go Zoom. But tactically, Annette and Maria, how have you seen your creative collaborators working together, and have there been ways, interesting projects that you've seen come up where artists are using digital tools? Annette, was it you that mentioned, it was a student, George, I think, that mentioned in our class that Jacob Collier did sort of something with the lag time.
To get sync going, to sort of make it synchronous. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So he was doing some harmonizing through the internet lag, and they were able to figure it out. But I'm curious, Maria and Annette, if you've seen, or if you've been working digitally in any new ways, and as a little bit of a teacher, and I know that some of our other teachers in the music business department mentioned this, there's been sort of actually increased intimacy in the classes and increased engagement as sort of everybody welcomes each other into their homes. So what has that been like?
Yes, well, you're right. It is much more bare. I think, there was something we talked about last week, which is usually when we come home, we disrobe and we're, in our PJs and we're just feeling comfortable. And that first week felt like we put on a lot of expectation and baggage. And over the last few days, I think this week, there was that shift where people didn't try to clean up everything around them, and they're just being normal. And that's been a beautiful thing. In terms of tools that people have been using, one of my friends has started a project where she's just sending little segments of improvised motifs. It could be 8 bars, 16 bars. And then, she'll send it out to 3 people. And then, depending on the second tier, lots of interpretations happen. And then it sends out. And it's so beautiful to see. It's almost like that game, we used to play this in India called Telephone, where you whisper into someone's ear and then it keeps passing down and you don't know what it's going to be at the end. It's like layered telephone happening right now. So that's been very interesting. I think the Tori Kelly and Jacob Collier thing was very interesting to watch and very beautiful to witness. And I think his primary thing is he blocks Tori Kelly out, or he blocks the collaborator out for just a few seconds and is able to keep playing in his own rhythm, and it syncs up. So that's been very cool to see. The other thing is the number of home concerts and collaborative writing projects, even in terms of people sending poetry to a musician and then that becoming something. But I know it happens in everyday life, but it's just proliferated right now. There's people sending in pictures of food and little cartoons that they're drawing. And there's so much more real-time feedback for everything that I found that once people got over the idea that they had to do something profound and that they could just do anything, it seemed to ease in the pressure and allow for more flow and creativity to just, I don't know what the word is, but blossom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jinx. Maria, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that I think there's twofold. There's kind of the behind the scenes digital creation, and that's these sharing of little bits. And that is an increased intimacy for me when I'm emailing or calling or texting people different ideas. And I think that's really exciting because I don't think we did that before because we would rely on that human connection. So now we're seeing that there actually can be a lot of interaction via email, via saying, here's my 16 bars, what do you have to lay on top of it? And I also think there is this new vulnerability on social channels, digital channels, that is really, I think, exciting. And I love that idea of a disrobement, Annette. I love that idea of, now I've played ukulele for a day and this person is putting their tune on Instagram as opposed to it being the final, finished project of that tune. They're being vulnerable. People are allowing themselves to be their true selves on social. And I'm really excited to see how this affects a prolonged effect on how the digital space is seen, because I'm, for one, enjoying that people are being a little bit less produced, a little bit more behind the scenes. And I think it will kind of add to more authenticity coming up, bubbling up. And I hope it continues.
There was one cool thing I'd love to add if we have time, Nicole.
Yeah, please go ahead.
There's this new concept, or it's not new necessarily, but it's a lot happening right now, where people are trying to improvise in areas that they suck at. So a lot of people cooking and really realizing that, you know what? Yes, I can do this. And also a lot of friends of mine saying, actually, I'm going to stay away from my primary craft. And I'm going to take out the puzzles that are in my closet. I'm going to take out the water paints and I'm just going to play for a bit. And the playing is such a beautiful aspect and was also something that certain schools are encouraging parents to do, to not try to overly homeschool, but just have playtime and just be with each other and try to do life things rather than academic things. I think that's been very cool.
Well, as a parent, I 100% co-sign that. There's the homeschooling is complicated, but like my kids have been unloading the dishwasher more, and like that's beautiful. So, and I think that's great advice. And I have loved sort of seeing people experiment in these other parts of their life, and like lots of broths and sourdoughs and dyeing your own clothes and all sorts of interesting projects popping up. So, and I think that, like you said, when you sort of like let your brain be in that really vulnerable space where you're all of a sudden a novice again, all of a sudden it unlocks creativity sort of across. Well, I hope that this was a great discussion for others. I certainly enjoyed it. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank George for cooking this up with me. And Bree, thank you so much for putting all the tech together, and the BerkleeICE and GSI team for supporting. And we are going to be sharing out, I'm going to put it actually right here in the link and or in the little chat. Please stay tuned to this space. I hope that if y'all want to connect and meet each other, introduce yourselves to each other, etc., please start to use this Slack. We're going to start putting resources in there as well. And we will soon be blasting out our information for the next one. I think one piece that's going to be really interesting is how artists get compensated, especially as we shift digitally. And I think that that's going to be incredibly important as well. One thing that we, George and I, are going to share out is a platform that we've been putting together for students and some recent alum in the Berklee sphere to license their music to other digital creators. So we're excited to share that hopefully next week as well. So stay tuned. Thank you so much. And we will share out the recording as soon as it's ready.
Thank you, Nicole.
Everyone. Take care, be well, stay home. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.